concept is you want to build a site. This is what it is. And so you don't need a developer at this point in the company. You're actually looking for things that are other tools. And so we're going to talk about kind of some of the other tools out there with your concept. And at the end of the day, the goal here of building kind of a web-based MVP is you want to get something out there fast and simple.
My idea is that before I came to Georgetown for the MBA, I used to work as a financial planner, and I would advise a lot of high net worth older individuals, and a lot of them would have money set aside for retirement, specifically to make sure that it lasted them until the end of their lives. And one of the things that they were concerned about was that they wouldn't know enough information, or they didn't have enough information about long-term care options. So the idea at a high level is something like a Zillow for long-term care facilities, so that they can explore facilities, get like 360-degree views, get understanding of what the amenities are. The other side to it would be something like a lending tree for the long-term care insurance policies, so that they can learn more about the ways to fund long-term care.
Got it. So if you had to describe your kind of the value proposition in one sentence, how would you describe it? What are you basically giving to people who are thinking about planning for the future? What's the value you want to bring to them?
Yeah. So what I heard when I was talking to a lot of these people was, I don't want to be a burden on my children or grandchildren, so I'm helping them find a way to stay independent, as well as helping them find a way to pay for it.
Great. Okay, so that's good. So ultimately, and your thinking is that this is a terrific kind of a web platform.
Yeah, I think also from my experience that a lot of the seniors, the senior communities is, I guess, immersed in web applications enough so that they know how to check their email, they know how to check Travelocity and general websites.
My grandma also knows how to forward listserv emails around a lot, so she's quite adept at it. That's great. So tell me a little bit about who you've talked to. How many people have you talked to about this a little bit?
So I'm still very early on.
Great.
I've kind of gone off the hunch that, when I was speaking to a lot of people that were my former clients, that I got some input from them.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple of people that are more, I guess, closer to the space now. So I've got a few, at most like 3-4 interviews. So I'm not as far along. I've missed a few of the workshop seminars. But yeah, I'd like to go a little bit deeper and
That's great.
Get some more coverage.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think one of the things for sure, just to start here, is I think it is good for you to continue interviewing. This is a great point to continue interviewing. So I would say certainly add that to your list of things to do, is go out and find folks that are both on the kind of the provider side, who are providing long-term care facilities, as well as kind of individuals who are thinking about it and kind of start to understand that. But let's talk a little bit about how we approach building an MVP for you. What would be the things that we'd approach, and so how would you wind up starting to test some things that you want to learn? So let's start with the first question. First question I have is, what is the key thing that you think you need to learn? What's the key risk that you think there is that you need to learn about in this business to be successful?
So I think that the key risk is that that there are already solutions out there that seniors can kind of rely on, that they don't. So I guess the way I'm thinking about it is, I think there are a couple of websites that are similar.
Sure.
They don't go perhaps in depth or go into the types of things that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But I think that will be one of the biggest risks, is that the target customer can do it, but they have to go to multiple places to do it.
Got it. Yeah, I know one that's, funny enough, one of my clients when I was a lawyer is called A Place for Mom.
Yeah.
So there's actually a site that does it, but not, I think definitely what I've noticed so far is that they're not nearly as kind of self-guided. So it's a lot of it where you have to call, and there's a lot of kind of, so
exactly.
your approach could be very more of a technically savvy one.
Exactly. So yeah, there are places like that that can assist with that.
So when you talked about it early on, you mentioned that there weren't a lot of places for people to get all the information that they're looking for in one simple place. So is that one of the things that you think is important in a site, is to have all the information in one place, or do you think it's a particular type of information?
Yeah, it's. I think it's a particular type of information.
Okay.
So at least one aspect of it is the facility level. Knowing what type, I guess, there's a whole education process that comes with this. Is what's the difference between an assisted living facility versus a retirement care community.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's a lot of information that goes along with it.
Great. So let's talk about how we would actually build an MVP for you, or how would you go about doing this. So tell us a little bit. Have you ever done any coding before?
No.
Okay, good. That's great.
Not since like 10 years ago.
All right. Have you ever built a website?
Not since 10 years ago.
Okay. Have you ever written a blog?
Yeah, I've done some blog posts.
All right, that's great.
Mhm.
So are you comfortable with using? Do you have a domain name picked out yet?
I do. I actually, I reserved it. It's caredfor.com. So.
There we go. I like it. It's good. So I think one of the things for you, as we think about it a little bit, might be actually to figure out how we scope this in a small enough sense that you can actually start to see, do people visit, do they return, and that type of stuff. So I think like part of your scoping thing is going to be actually to figure out how you wind up slicing off the world in a place that's pretty small and pretty narrow, so that you don't have to try and cover the entire world. So let's maybe, the first thing I would think about is what part of the country do you want to focus this, let's just say this first set of tests on?
So I went to an entrepreneurship help session, and one of the entrepreneurs in residence suggested Cincinnati, Ohio. I don't know anything about it, but he seemed to feel comfortable that it was a good place.
I think that if you don't know anything about it, it's probably a terrible place to start.
Okay.
So pick some place that pick some place that is, when you're starting something out, pick some place that I always suggest. Pick a place that you can visit every one of your customers for your first testing. Because your first set of customers, ultimately, if you're building an online MVP, you want to be able to visit them all face to face. So if you wind up able to get, let's say, 500 people in a particular area, you don't have to move to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So I would take at the start, as you're building out your test. Now you might pick to launch in Cincinnati, but for an MVP test, pick a place that's within driving distance. This is my first piece of advice.
Okay.
So where do you live?
I live in DC, so
Okay.
I think the other thing I would think of is maybe Arlington, Virginia.
Perfect.
Close by.
Great. Yeah. So let's pick Arlington.
Okay.
And what I think you might want to look at is have you done the analysis on how many kind of care facilities there are?
No.
Okay. So maybe one of the things to start out with is figure out how many care facilities there are and see if you can slice off a place where you might be able to even scope further. So maybe it's just care facilities in Boston, let's just say, or whatever it might be, and scope it really, really narrow so you have under 10 facilities that you're tasked with kind of reviewing.
Okay.
So that's the first thing that I would do, is I would just pick an area that's really, really narrow.
Okay.
From it. The second thing that I think you can do, you have a great opportunity to do, is actually to use WordPress as a site. Now, have you ever launched a WordPress site before?
No.
Incredibly easy. It's called a content management system, CMS. And the CMS system is basically designed to do something that is pretty neat in web technology. It's basically creating a scalable solution for you. So whether you have 5 care facilities or 10,000, WordPress builds a system that basically can display those 5 and 10,000 all the same. So essentially what you do is you go out and figure out the information that you want. Kind of, it's a blogging platform, the information you want, and then as you start to add more to it, you just basically get the information put into the databases behind it and continue to expand it out. So I think there's some very good examples of kind of simple WordPress themes that you can get for under $100 that will actually let you start to test that. So that's the one thing that I would do, is consider using WordPress. The other thing that I would do for your test is, as you're thinking about it, is pick the 5 to 10 things that you think is information that the seniors would want to know about. Okay. So you've kind of identified a few things. They want to know, price. Yeah. They want to know probably safety. There's actually now, I know that there's some places that you can get kind of some of the government reports on kind of issues that they might have. So you might know that how it's rated and things like that. I think that's probably one of the key things, is figure out what are those 10 or so things, and actually as you're starting to kind of build simple blog posts, we'll call it, on them, you probably want to start to basically break them out in those 10 things and see what people pay attention to, what they link to. Okay. So my advice to you is actually to build your site, just a simple WordPress site. Mm-hmm. It should take no more than an hour. Find a simple theme. So if you've ever done it, it literally is, you buy the domain name, you get hosting through GoDaddy, you simply install the theme, and then you just basically start to create 5 or 6 blog posts, is essentially what they look like, on these care facilities. Okay. And then I think all you're going to do is start to get people looking at it. So see if you can get some of the people that you're interviewing to take a look at it and give you feedback. But it's super simple. Like, it's, again, all you're looking for is a very small, narrow slice of the world, and just get people's feedback. You should be looking to see if you can measure and track things like what links are they clicking on, or what things are they paying attention to. But if you start with 5 or 10 locations, and you see that people are, hey, it turns out that people really, really care about, do they have things like activities? Maybe that's the thing then. Activities is really important, so you'll know that type of thing. Or maybe they don't care about activities, they really care, do they have pets? Do they allow pets? Maybe there's not a good place to find, for people to find whether they can have pets or visitors or those kind of things. But I think if you build a really simple site like that, and just essentially start to get some people, seeing it, that's great. And have you ever used AdWords before?
No.
AdWords is super simple. With $100, and you can actually get a free credit that I'll send around to the whole class for $100. You can actually start to buy some words. Maybe it's Ballston long-term care, and you can have people who might be in your target see what they think about it and what they click on it. All you have to do is make sure you have Google Analytics tied into it, and it's super simple.
Okay.
So does that feel like something that's doable?
Yeah, I think so. I think, so I have the domain name, and I'll get started with the WordPress and the AdWords, and I think that's a good place to go.
Excellent. Any feedback out here on kind of approaches? Sure.
I just have a question. How do you get people to go to WordPress?
So it actually would be his domain name. So essentially it would be caredfor.com. Basically what WordPress is it's the plumbing behind caredfor.com. I think the trick would be finding the people that you're interviewing to encourage them to check out the site and give feedback. So that would be one for sure.
Okay.
Use things like social media. But then also I'd recommend trying to get $100 or a couple $100 on AdWords and buy traffic. For people who are searching, they'll click on ads to come visit your site and monitor how they behave when they go to your platform. So you're the whole thing is, again, get something up there. Again, you don't have to have that many places. It can be a very small geography. It can be a couple block radius, whatever it is, Ballston, or it can be, Fairfax, whatever it is. Someplace you could drive to, and then find out how you can get people clicking on it. And always, the last thing when you're doing a site like this, make sure you have a place that they can sign up for more information. You'll get email addresses oftentimes, and as they kind of get into the site, collect those email addresses and reach back out to those people. Hey, I saw you visited caredfor.com. I wanted to basically ask you a few questions about it. Can you spend 15 minutes with me and give me some feedback? Or here's a $10 gift card to Starbucks. I'd love to have you fill out the survey, whatever it is. But do something really simple like that and see what kind of feedback you get.
Okay.
Any other questions on your end?
No, I guess, so it sounds like WordPress is simple enough where I don't have to have the coding experience or the web development experience to do that. Okay.
You'll find you don't at all. And I'll send you there's a theme that I think you might be able to even play with. But it's as simple as basically, so what WordPress is really is a blogging platform. And all you're going to be doing is writing articles, basically, with the content in it. And you're going to be looking to see what are people clicking on. So you might essentially, for example, write a review of these 5 places based on information you can glean from other places. And in each place, put a link in it and click out to that link. See what people are clicking on, what they care about. Do they care about the ratings and reviews, or they care about kind of amenities? Whatever it is what you see they click on, that's what you can see what they're caring about a little bit and know more. Maybe you move one up to the top or one down to the bottom. But again, for what you're looking for, and kind of what I would urge you to keep focusing on is how can you get people to engage with your platform? So if you find people that come there, watch for people that are staying on there for 2, 3, 5, 10 minutes at a time. You know those are people that something resonated with them, and see if you can find out what they cared about. Turns out they really liked the fact that you had information on pet care. They really liked the fact that activities matter. Find how they behave. And again, you're talking about really small numbers. You're going to be buying little bits of traffic, so you might be talking about 10, 20, 30, 50 people. All you're looking at is to see how they engage. There was an investor from Sequoia Capital, who's one of the largest VC funds in the world, and very successful. And one of the things that they talk about is the key thing to a successful startup, be it on mobile or web, is someone who really focuses on engagement of the first X number of customers. So you don't need thousands or hundreds or millions. You actually just need a handful of people. And once you find those people that they can't live without your platform, or they really love the content you're doing, you've got something on your hand, and then you figure out how to get 1 million people just like that. But I think the start is finding how to create something people love. So just write something super simple. Again, don't worry about how it looks or content, a big set of content, but figure out what are the things that you think are those 5 to 10 things that people might care about, and see what they do care about. Okay. Cool. Any other feedback from the group here? Thoughts or comments? Yes.
Well, if you ever do want to speak to like one of the bigger providers, there's something called Sunrise Senior Living. They're based there and they're huge.
Okay.
But I would go to some of the facilities and just speak to people who are there and see what are the topics like pets, or so you can figure out where your blog posts are, because ultimately at facilities everybody talks. Like it's a very big social atmosphere, so they want to read what they talk about. So
Sure.
It's great feedback.
Thank you, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
yeah.
Comment?
Maybe it's by way of question, do you think you're targeting, or are you targeting the clients of these facilities, or are you targeting people who may help them make those decisions, such as their children?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think from
Great
what
question.
I've seen, I would probably be targeting the people themselves. I think a lot of the, I don't know exactly. I think a lot of the competitor websites, so specifically A Place for Mom, it's a very specific target. It sounds like they're going more for the children, and I think in my experience, the clients want to have more input on the decision-making process.
Yeah, that's a great question in terms of a great question to ask generally, and I think it's something important is, the better that you can have a bet on who your target customer is, and I think it sounds like that your bet right now is that it's actually the person making the choice,
Yeah.
And it lines up with your experience. Focus on that. Don't try and do something that is also for children, but focus very much on a narrow set of people, and I think you'll get more and more crystallized as you go through. It turns out that it's actually men or women. It turns out that it's actually people that are 70 plus, or people that are 55 and under, whatever this might be. You'll get more and more honed on it. But I think as much as you can do in this early set to be focused on learning. And again, I think one of the key things I found is when you build your simple site, and again, it shouldn't take more than an hour. As soon as you can do that, track ways that you can get people to give you their email address, so you can follow up with them and just interview them about what they cared about, what they didn't care about. It'll feel a little weird at times because you're building this really simple website and you're kind of buying traffic to come there, and you're like, why am I I don't know what I'm selling, I'm just kind of getting information. It's great. It's just, I would position yourself as a student who's looking to learn more about this space and see what kind of feedback you can get, but focus on kind of as much as you can learn from this simple site, and I think you can get an MVP up in a couple hours. So I want to give a quick case study, another example of how someone has done this before. So who here has heard of Noah Kagan? Anyone heard of Noah Kagan? So he was actually early on at Facebook and got fired before he got any of his stock. So he lost like $100 million by getting fired before his vesting went. So, but really neat guy. He actually went on to help be the chief marketer at Mint and has done a number of things. And currently he works on a project called AppSumo, which is essentially a daily deals site for entrepreneurs. And essentially what someone asked him is, I want to start a startup. How do I do this? And he said, listen, anyone can start a startup. You should be able to make $1,000 in 24 hours. So he said, basically threw down the gauntlet. I believe I can do a startup and make $1,000 in 24 hours. And so Noah basically set out to do the 24-hour challenge, which turned into this company called Sumo Jerky. And the start of Sumo Jerky was nothing but a simple website that took 2 minutes to create, and a link that said, if you're interested, send $60 in PayPal to his email address. And that was it. That was the domain name. And basically, in 9 hours, Noah earned $3,000 in revenue and $1,000 in profit. That's the simplest MVP you can get. Essentially what he did is he sold a subscription to Jerky of the Month Club, basically, which is all it was, for $60. And he posted it on Facebook, shared it with some friends, and next thing you know, he made $1,000 in 9 hours. So this is an example of his website that you can see right there. That's it. Literally, that's it. It was a link at the bottom that said, send an email to this address, a PayPal invoice. So that's an example of a true, simple MVP. And again, for the case here, what you're building with Cared For, it doesn't have to be magical. It just has to basically test the premise that you want to do. So it is possible. Again, Noah says he created this landing page in 2 minutes. And a tool like Unbounce is great at it, WordPress is great at it, there's lots of simple ways to do it. But if you want to test, can you get paid for it, which in some cases is the right or wrong answer, this is a good way to do it.